Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Crowbar, Zero and Below, out March 4th on MNRK Heavy. This album has 10 tracks, 43 minutes in length, and this is the band's 12th full-length studio album. They are an American sludge metal band. As far as the design goes, I love how this album is put together. On one hand, it feels very compact, it feels very balanced because the DNA of the band is alive and well, and that really connects the record from song to song. On the other hand, the album offers some diversity of approach. There's a lot of movement within this album and changes in that movement. That allows the record to feel a little bit more stretched out, to feel a little bit longer. But this doesn't have a negative impact on the playability because the album has life. You really feel connected. There's a road ahead. You know the right steps that you have to take in order to engage yourself with the journey that the album offers. And this is definitely an album that feels like a journey in which you can walk on and not sink into it. It's not one of those records that you feel like you're getting deeper and deeper into the album and you're also getting deeper and deeper into this dark hole. This record doesn't have that experience. It still has dark moments within it, but those dark moments are moments that you are able to walk through them and appreciate them for what they give you. So incredible album from a construction perspective, really enhancing all the positives, really making the album feel more dynamic, more fluid, more engaging, more entertaining. As far as the sound goes, this is Crowbar. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel with their 12th record. The sound that you've heard before from the band is the sound that pretty much you're going to get on this album. The thickness of guitar riffs, the griminess of the guitars, the heaviness of the drums and bass working really well with one another in order to give volume and substance and allow that volume and substance to turn into heaviness. All of that is going to be there from start to finish. Sometimes a little bit more direct, sometimes a little bit more methodic. Those are the changes that are going to happen from song to song and within songs themselves. If I had to pinpoint two elements that perhaps feel slightly different, at least in the way they come across on this album, I'm not saying that they weren't there before because they have always been there, but I feel on this record they're maybe a little bit more noticeable. It's the more thrash influence in some of the riffs. They feel a little bit more direct, they feel even groovier at times, and also the more doom atmosphere that permeates through some of the more methodic tracks. It's a lot easier to notice it, it's a lot easier to digest it. But these two elements are just spices. They're just add-ons to the sound of the band, to the sound that the band has always had in order to make this album feel a little bit more substantial, in order to give it a little bit more movement, in order to make it a little bit more engaging, in order to make it a little bit more interesting. I love the overall soundscape on this album because it's always coming back to that same starting point. It doesn't matter how far the songs go off the beaten path, they always find a way to come back to that Crowbar sound and keep you connected with it. Within that sound, I have to say I love the drums, I love the bass, I love the guitars. All three are working really well in order to cooperate with one another, in order to give the listener this big, substantial wall of sound that's coming at you, song in and song out. Like I said, in some tracks with a little bit more intensity, with a little bit more momentum, in some songs a little bit more methodic. But the experience that you're getting out of all three stays very consistent, very balanced from start to finish. The drums have great experience, great sound, very warm. They feel not necessarily powerful, but they have power in them. The power is just not shadowing or overshadowing everything else that is in the record. They didn't need it to put the drums over the top in order to give them the substance, in order to give them the force that they require. The force is there, but it's a different kind of force, a force that permeates, that allows it to integrate with what's happening as far as the bass is concerned and the guitars. The bass is phenomenal. It really works well, not just in order to connect the guitars and drums together, but it also in order to have its own life and its own approach that has a positive impact, specifically when it really pushes through. When it pushes through, the griminess, the grooviness of those bass lines are outstanding, adding a little bit of a different flavor, bringing things even to a more dirty arena, making the sound feel more grimy. I just absolutely loved it. And then the guitars are the Crowbar signature guitar sound. 2 seconds into this record, you know you're listening to a Crowbar album. They have that thickness, they have that distinct sound that mixes that thick volume with a grimy, sludgy atmosphere that just becomes so natural to them. Like I said, it's their DNA, it's their sound. There's no other band that has that guitar sound but Crowbar, and it's alive and well throughout this entire record. And the other thing that's alive and well throughout this entire record is Kirk's vocals. Phenomenal, super consistent. This man is getting better with age. He's like a fine wine. And when you look at him now, or when you listen to him now and you listen to the earlier records, the voice hasn't changed that much. I think it's matured, and that maturity in his voice comes across with a little bit more darkness to it. It used to feel perhaps a little bit more intense or more aggressive, and that aggression and that intensity is turned into darkness. It's a different side of what you're getting out of him, but one that is not that far off. So I really feel like he's getting better and better with every passing album. On this record, the lyrical content, the way he connects with it, and the way he uses his voice, sometimes changing ever so slightly from verses to chorus in order to give the song a little bit more melody, a little bit more pizzazz, is absolutely phenomenal. I really love what he's doing vocally on this album. All around, this is a great Crowbar record, one that's really hard to pick singles from, because I really feel like this album is worth for the collective. It has great individual songs. It has the ability to work on the individual song basis. So if you're listening to it on a playlist, on random, it doesn't really matter how you're perceiving or how you're consuming this record. It's going to work really well either way. But I really feel like this is an album that you almost have to listen to it from beginning to end in order to experience those ebbs and flows, those slight ripple effects that they created just by changing the movement of the songs ever so slightly. It makes the album more interesting, and it gives more life to the songs themselves. As far as favorite tracks are concerned, I want to start off with The Fear That Binds You. This is the opening track on the album, perhaps the one that has the most movement, the one that has more intensity, the one that's more abrasive in terms of how it comes across. And it's a great way to start the album. I mean, you want to start off a record with power, with force, and here you go. With a song like this, you're definitely off to a great start. It drops from that starting point into a more chunkier riff in the verses, and this allows the vocals to help you navigate that experience. Then it breaks to a more direct approach in the chorus, giving you a sense of expanding and contracting as you're moving from verses into chorus, making the song feel more dynamic, giving it more life, and also making it heavier. Great bass line throughout this entire song. You're gonna hear it because it's gonna creep up every so often throughout. It really pops out, and you can hear that bass, and every time you hear that bass, you gravitate towards it. Just really phenomenal. The last third of the song, the dynamics of the track change. The song completely changes. It becomes more methodic. It moves more towards a sludgier sound, leaving some of those thrash metal influences that we saw earlier on behind and moving more in towards that slower, methodic approach. But I like the dynamic that it has because it has those first 2/3 of expanding and contracting, and then the last third where everything just comes almost to a grinding halt. Next, you have Confess to Nothing, a more methodic song, a song that has that Crowbar signature sound through and through, specifically coming from the guitars. It really drags, it's more methodic, it moves slower, the vocals feel distant, they try to break through, they feel like they're trying to break through. When it gets to the chorus, they come a little bit closer, they're able to break a little bit closer through that mist, through that dark, methodic mist that the song has, and the overall vibe that it carries. I just love the lack of movement that this song offers. It's one of the tracks that you feel like you're just kind of in there and you're not really sure if you're taking a step forward or 2 steps back, but you're still enjoying everything that's coming at you, and mostly because of the vocal approach. The vocal approach sets this song apart in terms of how it's recorded, in terms of how it's mixed, and the impact that that vocal approach has in the overall atmosphere of the song itself. Last but not least, Crush Negativity. I love this track. I just love the way it sounds. It has a somber, melodic chorus, and that chorus is outstanding. The chorus of the song is really a beacon for the entire track. It has a dark and welcoming atmosphere that just embraces you. The vocals are phenomenal. There's a clear-cut change between the vocals in the verses and the vocals in the chorus. The vocals in the chorus add melody to the experience of the song. They add melody to the chorus, and by adding melody, you're also making the chorus feel more hooky, more catchy in terms of how it comes across with the sound behind it. The verses are more direct. The sound feels a little bit slower but more penetrating, so completely different. The chorus opens up, it allows you to breathe a little bit better. The verses feel more contracted, but the sound still penetrates through that that thickness, that heaviness that it carries. It finishes off really strong. It's a song that the end of the track is super powerful. It just feels really heavy. It picks up intensity, it picks up heaviness. It's almost like they had the song at 10, and as they're reaching the end, they turned it all the way to 11. I love the construction of this track. From an overall construction perspective, very similar to The Fear That Binds You. Musically, completely different. It's a completely different track with completely different dynamics. This is it, Crowbar 0 and Below, out March 4th. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.